Dear viewers, thank you for watching Community Matters. Today, here we are on MTV. We have special general election TV debate 2019, and we have candidates from all major political party. We have Afsana Begum from Labour Party, Howard Berlin from Conservative Party, Shara Ali from Green Party, and we have Michael Fox from Liberal Democrat. Thank you all four of you for joining us today. We have been talking about Brexit, National Health Service. Our next topic is housing. And if I may start with you, Afsana Begum, what is Labour Party's policy on housing? Clearly we know that there is a housing crisis in the UK, housing price is going up. What is Labour Party's policy to tackle this issue?
In order to deal with the housing crisis, we have to build more homes and we have to build them at social rent. So we're pledging to build 100,000 council homes, and we want to make sure that they're at social rent. Currently we have, affordable rent, affordable housing, but what does that actually mean? It's not really defined well enough. What we need is people to be able to access a decent and safe home, and for that we need to build more housing, and we need to make sure that when we, in areas where we do develop them, that they are built properly, and that they're also decent and safe and habitable. We also want to make sure that we have rent controls as well, so we have a rising living costs. We want to make sure that people are genuinely able to afford to pay their rent, and that means that we have.
And how do you do that?
Well, how we do that is basically working with organisations to make sure we deliver good practice on planning and development, and make sure that those homes that are built are actually purposely built for social rent, and so not affordable rent, social rent. Currently we have affordable rent homes, a lot of homes being built, 80% of developments, some developments, some applications, but 80% which are affordable rent. That's not necessarily affordable for ordinary people out there. That's 80% of market rent, which is not genuinely affordable.
Do you have any breakdown of how many homes Labour Party will be building in next 5 years' time?
We want to build at least 100,000 homes, by 2025, and then we want to.
And where those homes will be built? Do you have any specific plan that these will focus on this particular area? Because clearly we know that there is a north-south divide. So
yeah, we will look at areas where there is a demand or greater demand, and we will look at areas where there's a severe housing crisis, particularly like in areas like East London, where there is a severe housing shortage and there is a huge demand, and we do have a number of people homeless and in need of housing.
Right, thank you very much. Michael Fox from Liberal Democrat. Housing, when it comes to housing crisis, we clearly know that there is a housing crisis in the UK. The price is going up. Young people, they can no longer afford it. If you're a fresh graduate, you just got a new job, it is so difficult. So in order to address this housing crisis, what Liberal Democrats propose?
First of all, I'd just like to say I totally understand the problem. In my borough of Newham, we've got 1 in 25 people are officially homeless. I myself am a private renter, I'm trapped out the housing market along with so many other people. The Liberal Democrat policy is that we should be building, by 2025, 300,000 houses a year nationally. 100,000 of those would be socially rented homes. And the Liberal Democrats need to provide the funding to do that. But we also want those homes to be environmentally friendly. We're going to be aiming for the passive house standard for all new build homes across the country, so that we can be tackling the climate change as well as tackling the housing crisis.
Right. It is quite interesting that you mentioned about tackling climate change and also at the same time tackling housing crisis. But in terms of north-south divide, we know that there are certain areas, particularly in England, it needs more regional investment.
That's right.
How do you address that particular problem through housing?
We've identified a regional investment fund of £130 billion across the whole country for various projects. That includes housing, but it also includes rail infrastructure, electrification of rails. So we need to be rebalancing the economy. Of course, houses need to be built where people live, but we also need to think about where people are living and why. We support the Northern Powerhouse strategy so that we can get people with a diverse economy and jobs provided to give opportunities throughout the country.
Right, thank you. Shara Ali from Green Party, housing crisis, another matter of concern for British voters. What would Green Party would do in order to tackle this housing crisis?
Well, firstly, I'd just like to endorse some of what Michael said about we need to look at where people live and why. And I think part of the discussion so far has already moved onto that territory about where are we going to put investment? Everybody can agree that we need more homes, housing, infrastructure. Everybody can agree so far that there needs to be more investment in social housing so that people can actually afford to live in those housing units. And we also say actually this magic figure of 100,000 homes in social housing. So that's the Green Party's objective as well. But we do have a much more visionary strategy, I would say, because unfortunately, and what hasn't been touched upon yet, and it's actually implied that the other parties would reinforce it. Let's talk about the housing ladder. The Conservatives, I'm sure, will go on to talk about the same thing, being sort of locked out of the housing ladder and the property market. The trouble is that housing is a basic need. It's a basic right, and it's become a commodity. And the idea that, for example, you could have a second home and you can invest in it, and you can just see how much investment you get on that by pricing, by actually exploiting people. So on the one hand, we would make sure that landlords are physically unable to keep ratcheting up the rents on their tenants. On the other hand, we would move away from the kind of location obsession. That means on a pile of bricks in one particular location, you're actually paying extortionate amount, whereas the same amount of labour that's already expended on that, you'll be paying the same amount. We'll be moving towards a land value tax. That's a radical policy. It represents a very big difference. It will require transition, but it means we'll be taxing, it will be getting away with council tax banding, we'll be moving towards actually pricing the land in an equitable fashion, and we believe that this would very much
Has it been practiced has it been, this particular scheme that you have mentioned, has it been practiced anywhere in the UK before, or in any of the European countries?
There are examples of conurbations, communities, where people share land differently and price land differently. And we want to be looking towards developments which are not just in terms of sustainable housing and make sure that they're environmentally friendly, but we need to make sure that they aren't prohibitively expensive, because somebody has decided quite arbitrarily that living in this location will put you in that band.
Right, thank you.
So the
Howard
land,
Berlin from Conservative Party. Conservative was in power for last 9 years. What they have done in terms of tackling housing crisis, and if you form a government after 12th of December, what do you do to tackle this problem?
so in the last 5 years, we built 500,000 homes in the country.
Was it good enough to tackle
That is,
the housing crisis?
that is not enough. We need to build more, and our plan is to build 300,000
And
more.
why Conservative didn't do that?
Because it's not easy to build houses. You need the materials, you need the people to actually do the job. And you also need to find the right sites. And one of the problems we have in London with some of the Labour boroughs is they're looking to on green sites, on green belt sites. And my point I'd like to make strongly is that there is enough land in London to build all the homes we need without touching any of our precious green space. There's loads of brownfield sites in London where we can develop. One of the problems we've got in London is that Crossrail is delayed. When Boris left office in 2016, it was on target and it was cash okay. Now it's delayed, and of course that's also going to delay Crossrail too. Those two things would really open up loads of other areas in London where we can actually build homes. So I think the Conservative policy on housing is very good, but obviously clearly we need to do more.
So how many homes will we building in, let's say, for example, in next 5 years' time? You said Conservative Party did actually build many houses in order to tackle this particular issue. So in next, let's say, for example, in next 5 years' time, do you have any figure that how many builds house Conservative Party will build?
It's in the manifesto, and the figure is 300,000 homes per year. And of course, last year was the second.
And how you will prioritize
sorry, if I
the
could
area?
just make the point. The second last year was the second highest figure in the last 30 years for house building in this country, and that's a good record.
Right.
But clearly, we need to do more.
Right. And how you will prioritize the area? I mean, because we know around London, in London and around London and around all those big cities, there are so many developments. However, if you look into rural areas, there is not enough regional investment. How you will use, how Conservative Party will use this housing funding, the additional budget, additional money that your party will put, how you will use that money to minimize the divide between North and South, how this money will be invested in regional investment.
It comes back to Brexit. Let's get Brexit done, and we'll be able to energise different parts of the country, like with free ports. we can probably have 60 or 70 free ports around the country. Let's energise the local economies, and therefore there'll be the demand there to have the jobs, which have the homes, and the land is there. So there's lots of opportunities in this country to do the things we need to do.
Thank you very much. Let Brexit done, and then we can actually use regional, we can invest more in regional funding. Do you agree or disagree?
I have to say this is nonsense. I work full-time in the construction industry, delivering housing projects around London. And people in the industry know how dependent the construction is on labour from overseas, particularly from the European Union. Brexit poses a massive risk to our housing industry. We already have a labour shortage, and Brexit is going to make that worse. The Lib Dems will stop Brexit, and we'll also be investing.
I think we know about that.
That's true, but we'll also be investing in further education and through-life training so that we can get people with the right skills and get people into the industry so that we can actually deliver the houses we need. That's why the Conservatives haven't been able to deliver enough houses over the last few years, because they haven't put the work into developing the industry, developing the logistics that is needed.
When you were in coalition government for 5 years, did you guys do enough to invest more money in regions that has been deprived for many years? And we know that this inequality, this austerity inequality that was somehow supported by your colleagues from Liberal Democrat was to blame for Brexit.
The austerity policy isn't what we're talking about here, but I accept we were in the coalition government, but we were the junior partner with a tiny number of MPs in that. Policy in this area was dictated by the Conservatives, and it wasn't good enough. We want to do better, and that's why we're asking for people's vote now, so that we can show you what the Liberal Democrats want to do in the future.
Right, thank you very much. Afsana Begum, Michael Fox said that after Brexit there will be a skilled migrant shortage, particularly in housing industry. Let's say, for example, once Brexit is done, if Britain comes out of European Union, Labour got elected. After 12th of December, Labour got elected. Then you guys got a fantastic deal. And then again, people voted to leave European Union. And then once Britain come out of European Union, clearly there will be a high-skilled migrant shortage when it comes to housing areas. So how Labour Party will tackle that?
I don't think that's necessarily our policy. I mean, I think we definitely want to encourage migration. I think we very much value the contribution that migrants have brought to this country. We recognise that. And I think, we've got to also look at the fact that, what has been the legacy of the last few years, particularly in places like London. If you look at planning and development, in places like the Isle of Dogs, you've got high-rise buildings being built and the infrastructure is completely decimated. The infrastructure is not there to support these big developments happening.
So are you saying that local people, they have been priced out because of all this development?
They have a skills shortage, but that wouldn't happen under a Labour government. We very much value the.
So has Labour government got any plan to invest more money for the skill shortage that we got in this country?
Absolutely, and we've always been pro that. We've always been encouraging of that, and we definitely want to value the skills that others bring from other countries, and we've always done that in the NHS, in housing, in other sectors. So that's something that we're fully committed to. But the reason why I bring up the issue of housing and the legacy of the last few years is places like the Isle of Dogs. We've got to look at the amount of buildings that are being built, and the infrastructure support is just not there. I mean, you've got the NHS, you've got GP practices that are not being able to cope with the.
Right. So are you saying that the system actually supports all those private developers, not the local community?
And this was a legacy of Boris Johnson as Mayor of London. Right. He approved many developments, and a lot of developments that were rightly rejected at local level, at local council level, but when they were appealed and went to the GLA, when he was the Mayor of London, you ended up with these applications being approved and the infrastructure not there to support.
Thank you very much. But I'll come to you. We need to go for a quick break. Once I come back, then I will give you opportunity to address the concern that was raised by Afsana Begum when Boris Johnson was Mayor of London. He has given priority to private developers, not the local community. Dear viewers, today you are watching special general election TV debate. We need to go for a quick break. Once we come back, we'll talk about more important issues. Do stay with us.